So this is a long story and English is not my first language. Please bear with me. These are all fake names. I was married to my high school sweetheart Sarah. We had 4 daughters, Jane, Tori, Brianna, and Claire. I met Sarah when we were 14 and we started dating right away. My parents loved Sarah and she became like the daughter they never had. I remember my father sitting me down and giving me advice. Sarah and I were dating for 7 years at the time when we found out she was pregnant with Jane. We were both over the moon, got married soon after, and went on to have our beautiful family. The only problem was my brother Jack. Jack always had a crush on Sarah. It kind of harmed my relationship with him, but I tried to let it go because he was my brother and because Sarah also knew and had reassured me that she didn't have any feelings for him. I trusted my wife. My limit was when Jack found out about mine and Sarah's engagement, and he confessed his love for her and tried to convince her to leave me. She didn't and told me about it too. At this point, I was very mad at Jack, and I was ready to kick his ass had Sarah asked me not to. I was ready to cut my brother out of my life. It took Sarah and my parents to convince me not to. I wish they hadn't convinced me to stay with him. My marriage with Sarah was amazing. We had, like any other couple, our ups and our downs, but I wouldn't change anything about it. We were a passionate couple who loved each other and their children more than anything. Mine and my brother's relationship improved after the incident, and I truly believed he had gotten over his crush on Sarah. Little did I know that he didn't only still have a crush on Sarah, but also was planning to break us up. One day, more than 6 years ago, I had arrived home after a week away due to job reasons and found my daughters, my wife and my brother in the living room. Sarah and my daughters were crying, and when they saw me, they started to scream at me. Sarah asked, "How could you have done this to me?" When I asked what she meant, she said, "How could you be cheating when you have us and what we have built over the years?" I was surprised that she had accused me of cheating. Never in 25 years we had been together had I cheated on her. I asked her what made her believe I had cheated on her, and she showed me some pictures and texts that proved I had cheated on her with a colleague. I asked her where she got this proof from, and my brother jumped in saying that this coworker, who also was friends with him, had confessed to him and sent him the proof. I started crying and begged Sarah to believe me. I told her that this was Jack's doing. She slapped me in the face and kicked me out. Before I left, Jane and Tori called me all kinds of names. The one thing which stung me and pained me the most was, "You are a disgrace to our family." For a long time, I tried to make Sarah and the girls see reason and to make them understand that I would never cheat, but sadly it was all in vain. My parents disowned me, and my dad said if I was a man I would make the divorce easy. Before the end of the year 2016, me and Sarah were already divorced and my daughters didn't want to see me. In the beginning of 2017, Sarah and Jack got married. My daughters sent me a message saying that they hated me and didn't want anything to do with me and that they had a new father figure in their lives. It was hard, but with a lot of therapy I learned to move on. I always held on hope my family would find the truth, but I learned to live with the possibility that they never would. 5 long and empty years went by without any contact with anyone from my family until a few days ago. I received a call from an unknown number. When I picked up, I said, "Hello, who's this?" And I heard sobs from the other side. It was my mom. She said they were sorry and wanted to meet me. I asked her why she wanted to see me now after so long, and my mom said that my family had found out the truth, but this was a matter to be discussed in person. God, the moment had finally come. I was wrongly accused, and now they knew it. I couldn't be more relieved. So I told my mom that when or if I felt ready to meet them, I would call her, but I didn't want to be contacted by anyone until or unless I conveyed something back. She told me she completely understood and that she missed me a lot. We said our goodbyes, but to be honest, I still don't know what I should do. A few people have asked me for an update, so here it is. I agreed to go see my family once. So I arrived at my parents' house on Saturday morning. I rang the door and my mom opened it. She started crying and hugged me. It was a bit awkward for me, to be honest. My dad gave me a handshake and I got in. Then my mom started trying to make small talk. She asked me how I was. She then commented that I looked way better and that I had lost a lot of weight, to which I replied, "When you're depressed, you forget to eat." I then asked them how they found out the truth. My mom said that a week ago Jack was drunk and had an explosive argument with Sarah and said something like, "I didn't plan all this so I would take your shit." Sarah then forced him to confess. Sarah and my daughters wanted to contact me, but my mom said it would be better if she just contacted me. I started laughing. My dad was a little mad and asked me what's so funny. I just said to him that my brother probably spent years trying to separate me and Sarah and blew it all up. All he had to do was be quiet and he could continue with his beautiful life. I think he deserves thus for how he ruined my life and took my wife. But it's not his fault completely. My wife also wanted to be with him, which was pretty disgusting to me. I then asked my parents if they could imagine how our lives would be if they, especially Sarah, had trusted me and given me a chance to sort out the mess Jack had created. Now we're all living in regret. My dad started crying. It was the first time in 45 years of my life that I had seen my old man crying. He started to apologize, saying he was an awful father. My mom, Sarah, and my daughters were all very sorry. I managed not to cry, and I told them that I would love to reconcile, but it would take time. My mom asked me if she could give the green light to Sarah to contact me. I said yes. They then asked more about my life as they wanted to know how I was doing. I told them I was doing okay and had managed to pick up the pieces and move on. They confirmed if I was still single. I said I had a few flings as I felt very lonely and would drink at local bars and ask women out, but nothing serious, and was definitely single at the moment. I don't know why, but they were relieved to know that. Overall, the first meeting with them after 6 long years was better than I had expected. The next day, Sarah sent me a message and asked me if she could call me. I replied a few hours later that she could, and not even 5 minutes later she called me. She asked me how I was. I told her that given the circumstances of these past few years, I couldn't be worse. I decided not to tell her how much I had missed her voice because it would again get awkward. She wasn't my wife anymore. I asked how she and our daughters were. She said that they are not so good. After my brother confessed, Sarah and my daughters felt remorseful and had kicked my brother out. I asked Sarah a few questions. Why did she marry Jack so quickly, and how come she didn't believe me at all when I was being framed? She started crying. She said that during and after our divorce, my brother had been her rock. Sarah said that they eventually started dating and they got married because, and I was shocked to hear this, she got pregnant. They had a son together. He was 4 years old. His name was Daniel. I was a bit taken aback when I heard it. I asked if she could repeat herself, and she did. I told her that I needed some time, and I even warned her that the chances of us getting back together were slim, and I didn't want her to have false hopes. She cried a bit more after that, but said that she understood my situation too. I don't think anyone could understand my situation at that moment. She ended the conversation with a "I love you" while I just said goodbye. I know it should not matter that she had a kid with him. She was dating him and was even married to him, so this was bound to happen. But I felt intense jealousy towards them, even though she had kicked him out of his life now. He had nothing to lose when he broke us up. In fact, he got what he wanted, while I lost my beautiful family in the blink of an eye. I decided I would never get back with Sarah again. My mom was the bridge of communication between me and my daughters. I messaged her that I wanted to meet my daughters in a public place, and she recommended a park, and we met yesterday. When I got there, my daughters had already arrived. I took a few seconds to process seeing them for the first time in more than half a decade, and Jane hugged me tight. She was crying and kept saying she was sorry and asked me not to hate them. I never could. They were my sweet daughters. We'd hugged for a few minutes. It seemed like she didn't want to let me go. It took Claire to take Jane off me. Tori asked me how I was. I looked at her for a few seconds. I was still surprised to see how much she had grown in the last years, but I also kind of saw the last 6 years flashing through my eyes. For a while after the divorce, I used to look at pictures of me, Sarah, and the girls together and remember the good old days, and would start wondering if living was still worth it. After a few seconds, I told Tori I had gotten a pet cat. I said that he was a great cat and my best friend, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here speaking to her. As soon as I said this, all my daughters started crying. I was looking at them, crying inside, but somehow still able to maintain my composure. They all said they were sorry for not believing me and begged me to forgive them. I told them I still loved them more than anything, but it would take time for me to truly forgive them and that they would have to show me by their actions and not their words how sorry they were. I noticed Jane was wearing a ring, so I asked her about it. She told me she had gotten married to her longtime boyfriend 2 years ago. At this point, I was about to burst into tears knowing I had missed my daughter's wedding. I instantly and almost instinctively asked her if he had walked her down the aisle, and she quietly said yes. I just couldn't do it anymore. I started crying my heart out. I had to sit down. That awful stole everything I held dear and robbed me of one of the moments I was longing the most for, one of which was definitely walking my eldest daughter down the aisle. I was ugly crying, and I could tell Jane was sad as well. I told her that I would get over it and not to worry about it. She just hugged me again silently. We stayed like that for what seemed a long time. After we broke off the hug, Jane said she was sorry once again. I told my daughters that I needed a few days' time and I would like to go on family therapy with them, and they agreed. Me and my daughters were catching up on each other's lives, and it felt good to have a normal conversation with them. After so many years, they excitedly told me about their wins and struggles and everything in between, and I was soaking it all in. They gave me their phone numbers, we said our goodbyes, and I hugged every single one of them tightly for a long time. Then we dispersed. My mom called me later that evening and thanked me for not breaking the girls' hearts. I said I never could. They were my sweet children. Then I asked her about Daniel. Did he know about me? She said he was too small to understand what happened a few years ago, but he was aware that he had an uncle who had to go away due to some reason. My mom told me that Sarah has filed for divorce and is not going to allow Jack to have visitation rights and demand exorbitant alimony from him too. She has proof of him breaking up her previous marriage, so she is going to use that against him too if needed. So all of this leads me back to where I was before my mom first called me. When she did, my first thoughts were those of worry and happiness and grief. Worry about how they all had been in my absence, happiness that I would now be reunited with all those people whom I called mine, and grief that I lost so many precious years with them because of my evil brother. Now, when I learned the complete truth, I don't think I can be with Sarah again. My parents tried to convince me into accepting her back into my life as if all this was some sort of game. My daughters are also on their mom's side and keep advocating about her and how I should forgive her. They live with my parents because they find stability here. They've grown up in that house. They never liked their Uncle Jack even after he became their dad. A day later, I called Sarah and told her that she may not contact me ever again or I would cut ties with my daughters too. She was very hurt and begged me to take her back, but I just couldn't do it. I didn't want to be with her anymore. She argued that I had wanted to get in touch with her before I found out about her pregnancy with Jack, so what happened now? I told her this exact thing wouldn't let me accept her, and I didn't want to live a life of adjustment and lies. I couldn't trust her anymore. She is going to her parents' house with Daniel. She doesn't want to live alone as her daughters are at my parents' house. I wish they hadn't contacted me. I was moving on and they pulled me right back into all this mess. My daughters have agreed to go for family counseling once a week and it is scheduled for next Tuesday. I'm going to focus on that. I decided that if they try to advocate for their mom again so we can be one big happy family again, I'm going to cut all ties with them too.